Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. 2024 is over! How did we feel about it at the end? I don't know, that seems to be underplaying it a bit. Okay, let's be fair here. 2024, not as bad as 2016 or 2020, but still ended up being pretty crappy by the end. The worst of us are once again rewarded, while the most vulnerable are made to suffer further. It was rough already, but it's only gonna get worse. But as has been said, hope is not a soft figure providing comfort and grace, but someone with a bunch of bruises, a bloody nose, and spitting out a tooth as they proclaim, right, what's next? And some of you were asking for the Mr. T review to come around already to ensure things went well. Problem is, you were asking for it long after it was released. A lot of you didn't even realize I had already done a Mr. T review this year. Mr. T and the T-Force number 9 came out April 22nd. I made sure it happened when it did because even by that point, we were starting to have scheduling issues. You know, I was gonna have a second Mr. T review later in the year, bolster up the energy, but then the schedule slips happened, and I needed to focus on Patreon-sponsored reviews since people pay for those. Coincidentally, it feels like the first half of the year, when the review came out, was a lot better, a lot more hope and successes. But there was just so much that Mr. T couldn't handle it completely after only one review. He's not a god, he's a man like the rest of us, and he tried his best, just like we all have to. But let's get talking about the year on this show. I know it's not the most important thing in the world, but hey, I think it's good to review the year's failures and successes to help us try to do better in the next year. And we should get started right away with the big failure that I just mentioned, the schedule slippages. I made a resolution at the start of 2024 to do 52 episodes of Atop the Fourth Wall. And it was a dismal failure. Truth be told, even by that point, I didn't think I'd pull it off, but I expected to at least do as well as the last 2 years. A fan in my Discord actually put together a very useful, cool spreadsheet detailing how many episodes I've put out per year and the total duration of episodes minus theme song and end credits. 2024 was the worst year I've had in terms of putting out videos, beaten only by 2008. Because that's when I started, so the numbers begin in October, and as such it's kind of an outlier. 29 episodes, people. It was up in the air if I'd even be able to do half the total I wanted to put out. It's embarrassing when once upon a time I was actually praised and well known for consistently putting out a video every week. And 1 year ago, some of you didn't get what this number was on the whiteboard. That was me personally keeping track of how many episodes were left. And I could wallow in self-pity about it, but no. Let's try again. I make no promises, but I think this is always going to be a goal worth pursuing. And yet you may have noticed in the tail end of December, I got stuff out faster. Part of that was one of the scripts was done already, sitting around mostly finished since October, so it was easier to record and work on it. But the big factor in getting these videos out? They were normal length, around 20 to 30 minute reviews each, singing notwithstanding, but we'll get to that in a minute. These longer reviews kick my ass. They are the big reason why the schedule slippages happen. I'm sorry, people, but I am going to be a lot more diligent with Patreon-sponsored reviews in 2025 and putting my foot down about length. And part of that is that 2025 will not feature a retrospective. Event Comics Month 6 will return in 2026, but the amount of work necessary for a retrospective, especially when some of the stuff I want to do in the future is much more niche, and producing multiple hour-long videos, yeah, we need a break from it this year. Don't look at this video's length. But oh yes, let's roll back a bit. We had a fun little time in December because we had no fun in October. The schedule slippages meant I didn't release my regular Halloween reviews in October. So Moarte decided to step things up in December, waging a war on Christmas and demanding I review spooky stuff during the season of... well, Christmas ghost stories are a thing, so I guess that's still spooky as well. Not spooky enough! It's still in the service of gift-giving and holiday cheer and crap! Go back to sleep, Eric Draven! According to the treaty, you're not allowed to complain about this stuff until at least February! But yeah, we started our new annual Halloween reviews in an unorthodox manner, but still starting them. We're going to be covering Evil Dead for the next couple years, and people seem to like my review of the adaptation of the movie. Expect at least one more adaptation in the future. And Moarte's war on Christmas ended with a peace treaty and us singing a holly jolly but also Spooky Dookie, song about Christmas versus Halloween. Ilnasia's selling it. You should get a copy from his Bandcamp. Speaking of movies and movie adaptations, that was a popular subject for reviews this year. Patreon-sponsored reviews had me cover some weirder stuff on that front, the David Cronenberg movie Existenz, and the Moomins compilation movie about a planetary apocalypse via comet. What's weirder, the whole of Existenz or Bjork's theme song for the Moomins movie? You make the call! Well, aside from the Evil Dead adaptation, we got to see the comic adaptation of The Empire Strikes Back, which was also kind of weird because it relied on a lot of narrating to us instead of showing the reader key moments. But oh, even weirder still than all the stuff I mentioned, the universe hiccuped again and I ended up becoming Brandon Tanold of Brandon's Cult Movie Reviews so I could look at a horror movie called The Murder Mansion, which took a shockingly long time to get to the mansion or the murdering, though the title did in fact apply by the end. Though on the subject of misleading titles, another weird one for the Patreon-sponsored reviews saw me look at an episode of the soap opera Guiding Light, wherein a character becomes a superheroine, and the funniest damn thing I've seen all year happened. I am a professional comedian, and I could never come up with anything as hilarious as that. Other Patreon-sponsored reviews, of course, ran the full gamut of subjects. With comics, we got to see Transformers, the Justice League, the long-awaited Shattered Grid, stuff I'm not a fan of, like Superior Spider-Man or Avengers Disassembled, but also stuff I did think was pretty good, like Sonic vs. Mega Man, or finally reviewing Marvel vs. DC, so we could eliminate that from the list of comics I'd never review. We got 2 episodes of Peacemaker, a few episodes of Ben 10, and even a Star Trek request as we got to look at the next generation version of the Mirror Universe. There were follow-ups, of course, more Gokaiger, a return to Delicious in Dungeon, and a quasi-follow-up to Batman vs. Aliens, Batman vs. Predator. Expect more of that in the future if we can keep the schedule to hold. Consequently, I had planned to look at the second issue of Superman vs. Aliens, but that got pushed aside. In fact, a lot of staples that we haven't finished yet got pushed back. Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters, DC Challenge, the long-awaited return to Batman Odyssey. I'm hoping to get back to them this year, but we'll see how it goes. Returning, of course, because it makes me lots of money, even when it causes me pain, was Event Comics Month, our 5th time doing it. And this one honestly wasn't too bad. I mean, it had bad or not great events, but only the first of them was soul-crushing. Secret Wars 2 was an utter slog, one of the longest reviews I've done for something that contained so much nothing. Much like the Beyonder's bladder after he got to learn how to pee thanks to Peter Parker. Comic books are weird, people! And you know it's weird because, of course, the other events were Infinity Crusade, Convergence, and Dark Knight's Death Metal, all unique and bizarre in their own rights, but still more enjoyable than Secret Wars 2 was. I can't say enough about how hard it was to write that script, and I have no idea why. It's not like I was hurting for material, but it just dragged, coming out a full month after the previous review. Easily the worst thing I looked at in 2024, which is pretty impressive considering I made time to review Youngblood's Strike File. We may have had less reviews, but it was certainly not an uneventful year. We went farther with merchandising, introducing several new items to the store envy, like a Comicron 1 model, keychains, earrings, magnets. Hell, I have a multicolor 3D printer now, so the symbol pins now actually are more than just all gold, and the mini Poyos aren't hand-painted anymore. Unfortunately, a fully colored Comicron 1 probably isn't gonna happen. This thing took 2 days to print on its own and generated a lot of waste in the process. I'm not saying it's off the table, but at the very least, I would need to afford a second super fast printer to help justify it. Consequently, working on action figures utilizing the open source Easy13 system. I'll be very blocky, but also very posable. Just how everyone wants me. Oh, but even better than my own merchandising is other companies merchandising me. For this year, I became a marketable plushie with this tiny chibi version of me that you guys crowdfunded to get in on. Expect more in the future. I'm thinking a plushie Poyo next, but if you guys want something else, let me know in the comments. I'll sometimes listen to you. I finally moved away from Twitter after so many years, as it has become a wretched hive of scum and villainy. I still post there, but mostly just promotional tweets that get buried anyway, because how dare I have a YouTube link in it. If you want more incoherent ramblings about whatever show or movie I'm watching these days, you can fly the friendly skies with me over on Blue Sky. I even managed to get the Linkara name on it, unlike on Twitter, where I went by Linkara19 because some long-defunct Spanish social network grabbed Linkara years before I did. Void, and hasn't posted since 2009, where their last post was saying they were switching to a different name that also no longer exists. Social media is stupid. You know what isn't stupid though? VTubers. I hung out with them a lot this year. Aside from playing Fortnite and Among Us with Eldritch Grandpa, I joined Red Claw's Spooky Division, wherein we watched analog horror stuff and hunted Bigfoot one time. As part of that, I also got to join in on Party Demonesses, aka Minerva's, science team, as we contacted aliens in Voices of the Void. All science team members have a field of expertise, so naturally I chose art history, the most useful subject when communicating with invisible cat aliens. But on the subject of Voices of the Void, I even got to hang out for a bit with Kieran and Grant of the Good Time Zone, helping them deal with demonic specters and telling them how they should really not put a radioactive capsule in the microwave. And it's a good thing they never did that.
Let's get a real good look at that. Everything's fine up here. Everything's okay.
Everything's shaking down here! And yes, I mentioned Fortnite. I actually got into it in 2024 thanks to another stream I participated in, Comics for the Cure. A bunch of comics YouTubers got together and raised a few $1,000s for cancer research, and I think that's pretty awesome, especially since it allowed me to, you know, hang out with the group of video producers who actually fit my particular niche instead of, like, every single other kind of streamer or content creator out there. I shall be the anchor point between all disparate video makers on the internet. Only ones left are TikTok drama reaction channels and Lo-Fi Hip Hop Girl. And then this web will be complete. On the subject of charity, I also did a stream for RAIN at the end of the year, raising $1,200 through direct donations and another $200 through discounted merch sales. Hopefully, we did some good for the year, as all of us hope to do every year. So let's formally say our farewells to 2024 by doing something that people have been wanting me to do for years and years. Talk about the covers! You've all heard me say it, reading from a trade, not looking at the covers. Many remain baffled or annoyed by this policy of mine, that the cover of a trade paperback collection is not intended to sell a comic the same way a single-issue comics is, thus reviewing it is pointless. A single-issues comic is the rebuttal of, don't judge a book by its cover, because the entire point of that cover is to entice a potential reader into picking it up. Some comic shops don't even let you flip through the book. They bag and board it immediately, and thus you only have that cover to go by. Whereas a trade collection will most often just pick one of the covers of the single issues, but it's not more reflective of the contents than any other. Most people collect trades because they want a completed storyline in one package, and these days pretty much every superhero comic is a multi-parter, written for the trade and all. Because trade collections will sometimes alter the contents from the original single issue, I say that is distinct from the single issue, and thus I'm not judging these comics as single issues. And consequently, there's no point in reviewing a trade's cover. It'd waste our time. And when we're often looking at 4 to 6 issues, any way to save time should be taken. Many of you disagree with this. And that's fine. You don't have to view covers and trades and all that the same way I do. Thing is, though, it's still my show, so I get to set the policy. But it is also a shame that with 780 episodes before this one, many of them feature covers that I never looked at. So, let's rectify that, shall we? These are the top 15 covers I didn't cover. I asked you guys on YouTube, on social media, and on my Patreon, what covers do you think I should have looked at? Most of you listed event comics, and, you know, fair enough, but let's also talk about something important here. I still don't want this episode to be an hour long either. Don't look at the video length. Some events are 12 issues long, which means 12 covers to look at and try to be in-depth with or have things to say. And while I'm not going to restrict myself to only one cover per review or the like, I think I'll keep it to just the ones that I think are interesting to talk about, or make jokes at. There's always the possibility of doing a follow-up list or something. After all, I've done so many mistakes and missed opportunities lists. Might be nice to have another top 15 list to vary it up. Especially since it was pointed out to me that by my normal rules, this episode was supposed to be a missed opportunities list. Whoops. But yeah, let's get to it already. We have a lot of covers to get through today, so no looking at the comics. Number 15, Batman/Superman, World's Finest. So as is tradition, the number 15 slot goes to the one that really shouldn't count, but I include it anyway because I'm amused by it. That's because this isn't a comic cover. It's a cover for the home media release of a movie. However, the VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray all retain the same cover for the first crossover between the Batman and Superman animated series. And it's not very good! Let's put aside that the 4 on the cover are all off-model, as if the artist was looking at their their reference photos from across the room. Hell, let's put aside the weird-ass proportions. Even for foreshortening, Superman's fist is huge, and his chin looks ready to secede and form its own face. Let's even put aside that weird-ass batarang that Batman is holding that looks more like one of those fake clip-on mustaches than a weapon. Putting all that aside, just compositionally, it looks ugly. They all seem to be standing, or in Superman's case, flying, or tripping, let's not pretend he might just be falling over, on a rooftop. But Lex is drawn as if he's sitting at a desk and really admiring Superman's armpit. Although from his position, given how Batman is crouching, I'm pretty sure he's kneeling on that roof. The Joker is the one that fares the best, but only so much, as they've stylized his hair into some kind of can opener hook. He doesn't actually seem like he's looking at Batman or standing imposingly over the heroes, but rather he's just another member of their group. Lex's armpit staring at least differentiates him, so he's more a villain, but since he's not imposingly over them or anything, he becomes barely a real factor in the poster. Cleaning up the planet, one villain at a time. That strategy seems ineffective when two of said villains are standing right behind you, and you're not doing anything to stop them. Number 14, from Avengers Disassembled. This one was not a suggestion from you guys, but rather one I wanted to do during the actual review this year. But hey, that episode was 46 minutes long already. I think it was okay to skip it to move things along. Instead, you get to hear me rant about this garbage now, because Avengers Disassembled is the gift that keeps on giving, you food poisoning. Parts 3 and 4's covers are fine, the former an old school, one of these characters will die blurb, and indeed one of them did in fact die. Although since it doesn't say, in this issue one of them will die, they could just mean that at some point one of them will die. And that would be an even more truth in advertising moment, because all of them have died at some point. I don't like how the 4 are off-center, but that's not too big a deal. Part 4's is disappointing as the final Avengers issue before they switch to New Avengers, but hey, classic elements of each character's costume discarded kind of stuff. The Titans did this once too, and of course the classic Spider-Man one. But oh, those first two, especially the first. Avengers number 500. It's the cover they used for the trade, in fact. And it blows. 500 issues is celebrated by the then current roster shoved over to the left in a black void save for a crappy pyramid of gradients that's pretty much just there so that the shadowier parts of Vision and Captain America can stand out. Though what stands out to me is Cap's lack of eyeballs. Youngblood's disease continues its vile spread. Get vaccinated, people. You can't even argue that this cover is full of aggressive energy from our heroes, because half of them clearly do not care about whatever it is they're charging at. Cap is gritting his teeth while Wanda is yelling and pushing her fist out as if she was roaring in agreement about something. But then Hawkeye, who compositionally is completely screwed over since it looks like he's hiding in there and our eyes don't notice him in the clutter of bodies, has no expression on his face. She-Hulk seems disinterested. We can't see Captain Britain's, Iron Man's, or Vision's expressions, but up top is Hank Pym putting only one emotion on display.
Dull surprise!
I can also point out that Captain America's chin is clearly getting ready for a fight with Superman's because of how prominent it is here. God, you reach a milestone like your 500th issue and you commemorate it not by showing off the history of the team, not by showing how cool and compelling these characters are, not even by something simple, like maybe the giant fractured Avengers A logo or the like. No, just some badly put together group shot that could have come from any random issue featuring these characters. It's impressive that Part 2's cover, by contrast, is just the normal kind of bad. A mediocre showing of some of the team that also could have come from any issue of the series. But hey, at least it reflects the contents of the story. Pathetic, frustrating, and creatively mediocre. Number 13, from Daredevil Born Again. To show I'm not completely full of anger or anything, Daredevil Born Again's covers are, for the most part, pretty good. They are a bit minimalistic, but that's not necessarily a bad thing when overcrowding can be an issue with the cover. I think a lot of praise should go in particular to Daredevil number 232, with this stylish, kind of artsy, and yet really damn on-the-nose perfect image of Daredevil standing in near silhouette amidst flames rising against a flag, and giant hovering eyeballs glaring down at him.
It's time to face your maker on the Muppet Show tonight.
All of the Born Again covers have quasi-religious connections to them, with this one being God and Country, to also connect it to its extremist political angles as well, given the Kingpin's hired help in the story, Nuke, is a crazed right-wing mass murderer so obsessed with America that he's ready to attack a flight attendant if the beer they serve isn't American. Consequently, he paints his face in the American flag like some weirdo patriotic version of the Crow. Although in this case, it's a bald eagle carrying their soul to the land of the dead. Merca. So yeah, just an amazing cover that contains a multitude of layers to it. Conversely, the cover of the issue right before it is not as great. In fact, one could say it's kind of laughable. If it was intentionally satirical, then bravo, but there's something hilariously goofy about Daredevil smacking someone across the face while "saved" is written in big pink letters at the bottom. The background just white with the spray paint brush turned on over the top and bottom. Nothing says salvation quite like getting hit in the face. And yes, I know context-wise that's some assassin the Kingpin dressed up like Daredevil attacking Matt Murdock, but the average person looking at this cover will not get that context. They will see that Daredevil saves people by smacking him across the face with a baton. Mind you, it's not helped by the fact that it looks like the motion lines for the arms swinging were added as an afterthought once the artist had put him in this pose. Even with that line, it kind of looks like Matt is just tripping at a weird angle while he's having a heart attack or something. You know, Vega retired as the title card artist for the show. I should instruct the new one, Jay Manor, to just include the word "saved" at the bottom of every card now, regardless of context. That'll bring in new viewers. Number 12. From the New 52, Future's End. I spent 2.5 hours for my 500th episode looking at all of Future's End. Do you see, Disassembled? That is how you make a milestone feel like a milestone! But aside from the 0th issue, I didn't look at the covers. And that's understandable, not counting that 0th issue. It's 48 comics. I could probably make an episode all on its own, looking at every single cover for Future's End and trying to crack jokes, like some weird comic version of when the AVGN reviewed Action 52, or any reviewer who has to look through and review one of those "we have so many games on this thing" cartridges or consoles. In fact, that might not be a bad idea for an episode down the line. Let me ponder this. But yeah, no attention was really given to the covers. And you'd expect with such a joyless, miserable, frustrating, pointless, and garbage series like Future's End that at least a good chunk of the covers would reflect that pain. But no, the weird thing is, overall, the covers for Future's End are pretty damn good. Quite a few of them really take advantage of negative space, hiding images of figures and other characters inside of areas that would normally be voids or solid colors. A great example of this is number 30, where a group of heroes are shown preparing to storm Cadmus Island on a boat, but behind them looms the silhouette of an OMAC blending into the dark skies. Issue 5 has Ronnie Raymond's distended face appearing in a mushroom cloud emanating from Jason Rush's back. Back pain can feel like a nuclear explosion happening right behind you. Advil can help. Or hell, here's an image of Amethyst inside of the dark areas beneath Frankenstein's chest. An infinitely preferable example of having a character in Frankenstein's body than what happened in the 0th issue. Like, I'm hard-pressed to say any of the covers are bad. Minimalistic in places, sure, but like the worst one is a close-up of the Joker's face being stretched by equipment. No doubt what happened to him in Brother Eye's Future, and more that it's just unpleasant. Which, you know, perfectly reflects Future's End. Unpleasant is the nicest thing you can say about it. Number 11. From Silent Hill, Dead Alive. I feel like I am never actually going to be done talking about the terrible Silent Hill comics. There will always be some new angle, some new detail I forgot or overlooked because it was hidden amid the brown sludge that was this series of books. But yes, while we've talked about some of the covers before, Silent Hill Dead Alive's covers were skipped over from their reviews. Thing is, it's hard to evaluate most of them anyway because they're so not Silent Hill. Most of the covers focus on the craptacular characters introduced in Scott Sienson's version of the town. Christabella, that one pilot guy who apparently married a demon, that lady that Lauren pretended to be for some reason. Sure, some of the covers, like issue 3's, do feature some monsters, but like, they're playing pool, I guess? I mean, that does fit with the atmosphere of the book, dripping in arrogant self-indulgence and their lack of understanding of the games, so they just have the monsters talking without saying anything, and then there's a dude named Whatley and a lady obscenely eating grapes. If you've never watched those reviews, this must sound wacky and unhinged. You would be correct, but then that just makes the fact that they have additional covers that much more baffling. Variant covers! Incentives to create artificial scarcity for multiple print runs or just for the hell of it. They exist and the Silent Hill comics had some. Honestly feels like it shouldn't have those, that the books aren't popular enough to justify their existence, but they had them. The first issue in particular having several. And the worst one of all, this retailer incentive one featuring a stretchy-headed Christabella holding, like, intestines? Some weird tentacles from a monster? The hell is it?
Sure, it's phallic. Why wouldn't it be?
God, this one just baffles me. This was a retailer incentive? You buy enough copies of the book and you'll get one of these? Who would want this? Who wants a cover featuring Christabella at all? But why in God's name would you just want a CG version of her with her head stretched way out of proportion with the rest of her as if she was a friggin' conehead? And I hate to do it again, but once more, I need to borrow it from Civvy 11.
Nice fucking model!
Maybe we'll talk about more of these covers in the future, but I doubt any Silent Hill cover is as bad as this one. Yeesh! Number 10. From Star Trek The Next Generation / Doctor Who. These covers are pretty damn good for the most part. Some are just boring with a few characters standing around doing nothing, but most of the time J.K. Woodward took the time to actually make some fun imagery for the sake of the crossover. My favorite of these would probably be issue 3's cover, where in the issue there was a flashback to Kirk and company teaming up with the Fourth Doctor to fight the Cybermen, and naturally they were the Revenge of the Cybermen era appearances. While they're a few years off from each other, the two eras kinda match the other's particular kitsch, so seeing this semi-realistic painting depicting the crossover really kind of works. And I could totally believe Kirk being able to fight off these Cybermen with patented Trek Fu techniques. And hey, Classic Who in particular should always get more love. And not horrific edit jobs that try to condense 10 25-minute episodes into a single 90-minute package. At least the colorization looked nice. But yeah, if you're gonna do a crossover, have fun with it. Have the TARDIS flying around right in the middle of a battle between the Borg and Starfleet. Have a cool, ominous shot of a Cyberman about to grab a Borg cube while the skeleton of a Borg lays on the ground. Have Captain Picard in the TARDIS and looking a bit in awe of it. And the Doctor just staring at him ominously for some reason. Well, okay, they can't all be winners. Still don't understand why issue 8's cover was an homage to old school covers with the Menace of the Cyber Controller blurb, but hey, it's still fun to see. Although poor Amy and Rory down there just kind of stumbling around while Worf gets to swing an invisible Cyberman with his batleth. Number 9. From Justice League / Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. On the opposite end of the spectrum, though, are these covers. They are not bad, but if you compare them to the Star Trek and Doctor Who crossover, they're just dull and uninspired. Like, all of them are just, hey, let's have the two groups of heroes next to each other and posing. Maybe you get lucky and it's Zed and Brainiac's half faces, or it's the Zords instead of the Rangers, but that's it. Where's our shot of the Justice League in the command center? Where's a cover where the two groups exchange outfits and you have, like, Billy trying to wear the bat suit or something? Where's Kimberly and Green Arrow having an archery competition? It's a unique opportunity to have a crossover like this, so at least be a little creative. Okay, here's a variant for issue 1 with Trini and Jon Stewart. And he makes a bird for her to pose in front of, or on top of. Why did he make a bird? Wouldn't it make more sense to have a saber-toothed tiger? And why the hell is Trini doing the can-can in this shot? I'm gonna get like a million comments to explain why this totally makes sense, but even if it is referencing something I'm forgetting, the covers are just lame. Like, they're not even terrible or anything. There's just nothing to work with here. Well, okay, except for this other issue 1 variant, where the Justice League look like they're trying to find the Power Rangers, but, like with the world's finest cover, they are incapable of looking behind themselves at these 6 people flailing around in midair. And Tommy, what are you doing? We practiced our midair kicks. Why are you crossing your legs instead? Ugh, just a perfect example of a wasted opportunity. Next! Number 8. From Spider-Man, The Mark of Cain. I have the Clone Saga in its entirety in a bunch of trade paperbacks, and most of the reviews I've done of it have been storylines from it, thus we often gloss over the covers for these issues. And honestly, The Mark of Cain actually has some decent covers going for it that show off some interesting things. For instance, Web of Spider-Man number 124 features a very fun trope in cover design, when a villain breaks the series logo and replaces it with their own. It's a nice little bit of fourth wall breaking, especially with this one also knocking down the issue number, the Marvel Comics logo, and the Comics Code Authority stamp. I'll mention zombies and drugs if I damn well want to, Comics Code! Like with Future's End, the second part's cover, Amazing Spider-Man number 401, features a great shot utilizing a shadow to bring up an image of Spider-Man cast thanks to a spotlight on Peter as he escapes from prison. Just a good shot, great artistic execution, and representative of what happens in the issue. Part 3, Adjectiveless Spider-Man number 58, is just kind of meh though, featuring Spider-Man and Scarlet Spider awkwardly fighting Kane on the edge of a rooftop while there's a green gradient in place of the sky. Oh geez, who spilled Mountain Dew in the atmosphere again? Pretty sure this time it's Baja Blast. Part 4's Spectacular Spider-Man number 224 is kind of misleading, implying that the Scarlet Spider is bringing Peter back to prison. But it's not awful, and I get the idea of it and the misdirect. But like, the plot of that issue is them fighting Spider-Side, and them switching places is something that happens at the very end and not like this. Ah, but the best one, or worst, has to be the final part, Spider-Man Unlimited number 9, featuring Peter in the Scarlet Spider outfit fighting the Sinister Six. Even has their name on the bottom with The Sinister Six Strike. Except, of course, that even putting aside that in the book there are 7 of them, the cover only has 5 of those villains. Unless they were implying Kane was the 6th member, which of course is not what was happening in the book, what with the Sinister Six Ven actually hunting Kane. But I actually love that Kane's giant head in the background just looks awful. They try to include the weird veiny scars on his face, but because the rest of the face is so heavily in shadows, the scars don't even look connected to him, and thus it took me a minute to figure out who the face belonged to. It's overall fine, but the more you look at it, the more it doesn't make any sense. And man, the villains kind of suck when bunched up like that, don't they? Number 7, Star Trek / Green Lantern, The Spectrum War. I mentioned variant covers before, but holy crap, people! Issue 1 of this crossover has 28 variant covers! A couple of those are just inked covers of existing art, admittedly, but there are enough regular variants that I feel sympathy pain for any completionist who absolutely has to own every variation and the damage that does to their wallets. And you really have to wonder why they even bothered with some of these variants. There are exclusives for different conventions, an exclusive variant for GameStop of all things. Do they even sell comics at GameStop? Were they even doing that in 2005? Was this part of a game promotion or something? 2 of those covers are the same cover. Nothing! Yeah, occasionally a cover is a sketch cover. The idea being you have an artist draw whatever they like on the cover for, like, an autograph, and there were 2 different sketch cover variants! Who decided this needed to happen? I'll give it credit. While I don't think they fully embraced all the possibilities for fun covers to do, like Star Trek and Doctor Who, the variants that were actually covers took the time to do some cool stuff with it. I like the silhouette of the Enterprise surrounded by the various Lantern Corps symbols. We had Hal in the captain's chair with Kirk looking annoyed at him, Hal making a giant Vulcan hand salute with his power ring, and weirdly enough, that is in fact the second giant green hand that the Enterprise has run into. Hal making a bunch of tribbles with his ring, this cool swirl shot of the lanterns flying around the Enterprise. It's overall good stuff. But maybe they should have spread these covers around a bit and not had so many variants for just the first issue. All the other issues had their fair share of variants as well, but not nearly as many as the first. Although for me, it's all about this alternate issue 6 cover that's kind of an homage to Star Trek The Motion Pictures poster, with the rainbow in it being made of the various Lantern Corps. Although this is the Kelvin timeline, so they never actually did the motion picture stuff. Number 6, from Heroes in Crisis. You know, as a way to quickly look at the covers, I utilized the website Comic Vine a lot during writing. They have every cover plus the variants. But they also included the original solicitations for the books, so I got to be reminded how clearly something happened during Heroes in Crisis' development, because man, does none of the stuff they talk about in those later solicits happen in them. Like they say in the final issue, with their deepest secrets exposed, the Trinity has to consider how to carry on, when the Trinity aren't even in the final issue. For the most part, the covers in Heroes in Crisis are fine. Not particularly compelling, and as I said in the original review, they put a lot of emphasis on the anonymous golden masks thing that ended up not being anything. But when the covers aren't too busy being misleading about their contents, they're either dull or completely tasteless. And tasteless certainly is an accurate description of the plot of Heroes in Crisis and its complete disaster addressing mental health problems and therapy for said problems. It's just they have so many other ways to be awful. Issue 4's cover features Harley Quinn having shot Wally West in the face and her standing on his corpse while telling a joke. It's not as gratuitous as I've seen before on the show, but it's already pretty unnecessarily violent, and also is something that never happens at any point. But then we have the variants. Some moron decided, hey, this series is about superheroes and their traumas, right? Why not have the variants feature a photograph of what's causing them trauma? This would include murder and death and loss, but especially in some of those bits, gore. Stuff straight out of horror like Aquaman's lost hand or Wonder Woman killing Maxwell Lord with a lot more blood in his face right up close to the camera. It's like they were trying to give the audience the same level of trauma. What was the point of all that? It's just gratuitous. Oh, but it gets better. Issue 7's original cover got leaked, wherein it depicted a dead Poison Ivy drawing what appeared to be a weird lightning bolt into the floor with her own blood. Oh my god! Miss Marvel's the killer! And as you can see, her corpse was positioned so that her ass was up in the air and the reader could stare at her cleavage. Outrage over the cover got it pulled and replaced with one where Superman pushes aside Harley Quinn and Booster Gold, something that, I hate to repeat, does not happen in the book. Just wow, DC. At every stage, Heroes in Crisis proves to be one of the worst things you put out, and it's shocking to think that this might be the improved version over whatever was the original intention. Number 5, from Dark Knight's Metal. Dark Knight's Metal's covers are, like so many other books on this list, absolutely fine and most contain nothing of consequence. They have their variants, of course, like this one of Batman riding on a dinosaur, or this variant where Deathstroke is fighting the Batman Who Laughs, whose reflection is in his sword, probably an homage to John Byrne's classic Hulk and Wolverine's Claws cover. But most of the covers are just kind of meh. They're overly simplistic, it's just a shot of a hero fighting someone in a void. In particular for bad is this one for issue 5, in which it's just Wonder Woman in a dark room holding a mace. But somehow the artist managed to shift her head and neck over so that they're sitting on her right shoulder instead of in the middle of her body. As we can see her breasts, and they are at a completely different angle from where her head should be. It's possible I'm just looking at this wrong, that it's just the shading or something causing an issue, but man, it really does look like that to me, that her head needs to move over a few inches. 10th Metal can grant wishes. And apparently her wish was to give the left side of her body more room to breathe. But what was brought to my attention was the very first issue's official cover. And man, how did it take me so long to realize that the Justice League are arranged in a way to try to evoke making the devil horns with your hand. Like Batman is the thumb, Superman the index finger, Wendy the pinky. And while I get it and think it's a neat idea, it doesn't really look all that good when actually put to practice. The abstract nature of the idea just makes it come across like this group shot is framed in a very odd manner, more akin to trying to create a mirror image instead of the devil horns. And even if it was presented well, it is an odd way to start your big company-wide crossover. The connection to rock or metal music doesn't really get established for a while, and it's a tenuous connection at best. The logo is evoking what the book is actually about, literally metal, not the music. So having them make the shape just feels like the artist misinterpreted what the story was about. Nice idea, at least. Number 4, from Secret Wars. Something people overwhelmingly wanted me to talk about were event comics covers, and hoo boy, I ended up cutting a lot of the suggestions. I don't think people realize how little there actually is to talk about most event covers. They are not dull, but they are also not usually that interesting to make jokes about. Also, did you know that technically the name of the book is actually Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars? Once again, not really a joke, just an interesting factoid where the shorthand became the official name because they sure as hell didn't include the full title for the sequel. It's understandable why they want me to talk about some covers, though, because while stuff like Metal or Heroes in Crisis aren't exactly full of memorably good covers, some covers have become instantly iconic, and that especially is the case for Secret Wars. A good chunk of Secret Wars' covers are fight scenes or group shots. Understandable, since it was technically the first ever event comic, if we don't count Contest of Champions, and the entire point was to sell action figures for heroes and villains to fight each other. But they put in some covers that are still referenced and homage decades later. I did talk about one already, my favorite cover from Secret Wars, issue 4 and the Hulk holding up an entire mountain. Beneath 150 billion tons stands the Hulk, and he's not happy. Not because of this though, he's just confused why the tracking on his package says that it got sent to another state after arriving in his delivery state already. But of course, the one that a lot of people wanted me to look at was issue 8. Sure, there's a bunch of fighting going on in the background, but that's not what we're focused on. Amid the chaos, there comes a costume! Actually, the chaos seems to be way the hell over there. That's like saying, amid a massive battle between two deadly foes trying to kill each other, someone was making microwave ramen down the street. But yeah, it is kind of weird that this cover has garnered so much attention since, well, it's not the premiere of the black costume. Secret Wars' tie-ins were unique. You saw the after effects of the event before the event concluded to encourage you to check out the event and ask, wait, how the hell did this happen? Thus, the black costume premiered first in Amazing Spider-Man number 252 5 months earlier. Sure, that cover had also become iconic, but even that one was homaging Amazing Fantasy number 15. It's certainly composed well, and the focus on it while there's this battle going on and all is impressive, but I don't know if at the time I would have guessed that the cover would become as well remembered as it was. Although I also have to wonder if anybody in that battle behind him is looking over and being like, dude, could you stop staring at yourself for 5 minutes and come help? Number 3, from Countdown. Ugh, I can't believe you're making me do this. Then again, I can't believe I actually reviewed the entirety of Countdown so early in my career. 51 issues in 2 parts, and yeah, I of course skipped over the covers for that reason. Unlike Future's End, which actually had pretty impressive covers, Countdown's covers were, for the most part, pretty pedestrian or average. The most unique element, of course, was the literal countdown at the top of the page. But even that was a holdover of the much better weekly series that preceded it, 52. It's a good way of connecting the two books, particularly with this as its natural successor, both as it's starting right after 52 ends, but also trying to make you think of it as, oh, more of that good critically acclaimed series. Mind you, the actual contents of the book would force you to lose that perspective on it real quick. The covers are a mixed bag, plenty of abstract imagery, plenty of group shots or pin-ups of characters. Most of the time the covers are a big ol' meh, nothing that stands out as that great. A few memorable shots evoking actual artwork or being cheeky like the Mr. Action collector's item cover. But oh, there's one of course that people wanted me to discuss. One bad one. I don't understand why. Kinda speaks for itself, doesn't it? Issue number 42. Enter Clayface. Exit Good Sense. The text does not help. There's no getting around it. It looks like Mary Marvel and the Riddler are just in a big vat of poop. Of course, it's just Clayface, but before that blurb was on there, the preview image back in the day just had that, and it's the first thing you see, and it just makes you think, oh god, this is gross. And this was 10 issues into Countdown. By this point, a lot of people began to realize how bad the book was, and all this cover did was make everyone think, yeah, these characters are mired in crap. Or, to put it another way, when thinking about Countdown itself,
that is one big pile of shit.
Number 2, from the Marvel Transformers retrospective. Not surprising that a lot of people requested a look at the covers for the Transformers retrospective. Believe it or not, the compilation video has continued to do very well even after 2 years of me releasing it, with a view count that's only being beaten by All-Star Batman and Robin for the compilations. But it's still being watched a lot, and I think that's great. But, of course, I looked at over 100 comics for that retrospective, and thus I skipped over most of the covers. I certainly mentioned a few of the more iconic ones. Number 80 in a 4-issue limited series. Shockwave's The Transformers Are All Dead. And then there's, well, number 69, which I didn't show at all because I was afraid the horrific imagery of Megatron fused with Ratchet would get the video demonetized. I still am worried about that. Naturally, most of the covers don't have much for us to discuss, but there are a handful with some comments I could make. Issue 22, for instance, features all these Marvel characters surrounding the head of Menasor. Yeah, after they all showed up to help Rom that one time, it was only appropriate to have them appear in the other toy-licensed robot story they had. No, this was just the cover gimmick for Marvel's 25th anniversary. although apparently other books featured this border around the main character of the book. So, congratulations everyone! This is how you find out that Menasor was the true main character of the Marvel Transformers book. Sure, he technically only appeared in this single issue, and most of you probably don't remember what was even the story where he appeared, but we all know it was Menasor's actions here that led to Unicron's destruction near the end of the series. Remember Menasor? Oh, but so many covers I could have looked at. I could have talked about issue 9, where a strangely off-model Starscream is about to attack Circuit Breaker. We could have looked at number 39, where poor Fort Max gets the shaft, as the cover puts it. What a great pun! Fortress Maximus is in excruciating pain as he's ripped asunder, and if there was air in space, the entire world would hear his screams. LOL! But if I had to pick a single worst cover for the Marvel Transformers books, it'd be number 58. What in the hell is going on with this? This weird image of Optimus Prime's head taking up most of it, some kind of grid pattern in the background, and each section filled with Kirby Crackle circles. Why is it tinted red? Was this made in a hurry? Hell, why can we see Optimus Prime's pupils? His eyes are usually a solid color. Is he staring at the little Spider-Man head in the corner? Wait, didn't that guy help drive Sunstreaker past some soldiers in issue 3? The text blurb is also weird. Megatron TM, alive! Ratchet TM, a prisoner! Optimus TM, out of control! Those first two are accurate. The last is not. And did we really need to add the trademark logos to their names here? Hell, is just Optimus trademarked too? They have that and the full Optimus Prime name? Just a bad, weird cover when nothing else in the series is quite like it. And the number one cover I didn't cover is from Crisis on Infinite Earths. People had tons of suggestions for stuff to look at, covers they'd wished that I had looked at and reviewed. And hey, with 780 episodes behind this one, we were bound to have a lot of different thoughts on covers to look at. But the one that I saw multiple times, what people were most disappointed in me that I didn't look at them, was Crisis on Infinite Earths. And you know what? I get it. Not a bad cover in the bunch. Like, its weakest one is the second issue, with a bunch of heroes fighting shadow demons on the Monitor's tuning fork. The layout is a little odd, and it's a bit cluttered in the lower to mid-right of the image, but compared to some of the stuff we've seen today, it's a masterpiece. Crisis on Infinite Earths contains not only great covers for the individual issues, but even the trade collections tend to go all out, with the most famous being George Perez and Alex Ross's wraparounds featuring painted artwork of every character in the DC universe and homaging so many moments from the story. People wanted me to talk about this trade's cover as well, but like, what is there to say? It speaks for itself, doesn't it? I read Crisis on Infinite Earths relatively early on when I started getting into comics, mostly thanks to this cover. I had read Kingdom Come already and thought this book would contain the same kind of artwork based on the cover. I was disappointed at first that it didn't, but then spending all night reading it, I got it. I got why this epic and amazing cover was necessary. This is why it's so disappointing when other event comics don't have covers like this. But I guess how could any of them be on this same level? And that's just for the trade. What about issue 7, the famous homage to La Pieta with Superman holding Supergirl up and the horrible sorrow on his face? Oh God, she's so heavy! Why am I the only one carrying her? How about issue 4, featuring the death of the Monitor and the pink smoke emanating from his body? This is it! The end of the world! Of course it is! If I've learned anything after so many years of doing this, it's that pink smoke is the sign of things being serious. And who could forget issue 10, with the Anti-Monitor and the Spectre about to face each other down? The Spectre and the Anti-Monitor! Death at the Dawn of Time! The pay-per-view event of the summer! Sunday, Sunday, Sunday! All good stuff. All things I didn't talk about or even make some quips about. But hey, at least we get a chance to look at it now. And who knows, maybe we'll come back to Crisis's covers again if I do a sequel list or something. Though for now, that was the material I wanted to mine out of it, and like those episodes, this has been going for way too long, so we should cut it short without getting into too much more. That's it for 2024 and the beginning of a new year. And I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be rough. Worse for some, even worse for many others. And like times of hardship before, We're gonna need to stand alongside each other, help each other, because we're all in this together. As we move into the next several years, I have this message for you all, for the future. Don't burn out, set more things on fire. You can't live in fear because that's not living. Wipe that bloody nose, grin, and get ready to ask the world, what's next? And if you're not the one doing that, then at least be there with the ice pack and bandages for those who are. And my final words on this. Protect yourself as you need to, but also be true to yourself. Never let others try to tell you who and what you are or how you should live, be it arbitrary rules you set for your work or in recognizing your own identity. Let these words from Star Trek be a motto moving forward.
We're going to be damned. Let's be damned for what we really are.
And with that serious note out of the way, next time I'll try to bring some more levity and fun as we start the long-awaited return of Secret Origins Month. And maybe, just maybe, this year will be better than the last. Oh, and speaking of new covers, Jay Manor has produced a new cover for the Volume 1 DVD, so, check it out if you want another copy of it. Or a replacement one. Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon, buy merch from the store NV link in the description, or check out the t-shirts available from Teespring. Thanks for watching.